Welcome to Excuse My Frenemy, the podcast where we talk about some of the big topics in sports and where two fans of rival teams try to put their sports allegiances aside, but you know we will fail to do so. I'm Sean Brady, and with me, as always, is my co-host, Katie Cabrera. What is going on, KC?
Hey, what's going on, everybody? It's good to be back. Of course, it's another week, another topic. It's a lot to discuss about, but I'm ready to jump right into it again.
Sounds good. On this week's episode, we are going to discuss the NFL, the college football playoff, the Major League Baseball lockout, and then me and Katie are going to go over some rules that we would like to see change in some sports that we just can't stand anymore. So with that, let's move on to our first topic, the NFL. So Katie, here's normally where I would ask you what you want to talk about, but I know you're going to talk about one of the following. It's either going to be the Lions' first win, the Dolphins' 5-game win streak, Derrick Henry still being third in rushing, even though he hasn't played in a month, or the Patriots only throwing the ball 3 times, or for that matter, running a quarterback sneak on 3rd and 5. I know you're talking about one of those topics, right?
You ain't wrong, but you're definitely hitting the nail spot, and it's too bad that the fiance had to walk into the room because I think she would have enjoyed this topic a little bit more than I would. But definitely, you already know where I'm about to go. The Seahawks and the Niners. Of course, my beloved Seahawks won this past Sunday with all victory. I got to tell you guys, walking around San Francisco with the Seahawks jersey is not the ideal thing. I got booed at in the streets of San Francisco. Not the most ideal thing ever, but, it's okay.
Glad you only got booed. It could have been worse.
Yeah, very true. But it was hilarious because, look at the game, how it turned out. Of course, let me back up. It was not the best game ever. It had me on my toes majority of the time. I laughed so hard when Russell Wilson chucked the ball into the back of one of his defensive lineup's head, and it just bounced off his helmet, and his defensive lineup was like, what the heck just hit me? So I honestly had a great time watching this, especially watching the whole part of there were so many turnovers, so many mistakes between the Niners and the Seahawks. It's one of those close games. It was a good game. It kept you on your toes. Of course, they're rival teams. They're always going to show them what's up. And of course, I get it. It's not Seahawks season. However, they will not stand down to the Niners. So it was good to see the Niners lose. However, this was not ideally the best game ever. Apart from that, I know there was a bunch of turnovers from the Niners. They had so many mistakes. They put a rookie out as well. And as soon as the rookie got his hands on the ball, he just automatically let it go, let the fumble happen. Next thing you know, Seahawks pick it up and start running towards the other way. So, it was a lot. I don't think you watched the game, did you?
Well, I didn't watch the whole game, but there was so much going on in that game. I felt like I watched the whole game because I'm a red zone guy. So they chime in to games whenever something relevant is happening, and they just kept going back to that game.
Of course, it was not the quarterback's game. I'll tell you that much. The quarterbacks had a lot of work to do, especially it felt like they were nervous. They didn't want to get tackled. They didn't want to get tumbled down. So they just kept chucking it wherever they could find. So, it was just one of those games that it was nice to watch. But of course, the Seahawks led that game from 30-23. And got to add another point to that win. So we're looking at 4-8 while the Niners are still 6-6. So we'll see how it goes. We might be 4th in the West side, but don't worry. I'm hoping there's a turnaround.
Yeah, this game was very interesting is the only way I could think to describe it. Well, first and foremost, the first thing I saw on this game was that injury at the very beginning to Trenton Cannon on that very initial kickoff return where ambulance is on the field. Just so everybody's aware, the news is good. Even though he was ambulanced out of the stadium and taken to the hospital, it turns out he only had a concussion. Which, if you saw that play, that's best case scenario because I thought he was in a bad way.
I did so too. Yep.
Yeah. So first and foremost, that's good news. But Casey, I ain't gonna lie, I was starting to get worried about your Seahawks because it looked like you guys were turning into the gimmick team, like the team that is we know we can't hang with this team, so we need to do gimmick plays. I mean, the fake punt, although very successful, let's be honest, that's a gimmick play. And then what's getting less press is the fact that you guys even tried like a double pass flea flicker that didn't work. And this is when you guys were up by, I think, a touchdown. And my first thought is, oh my gosh, they're pulling out all the stops because they don't think they can win. Now, the Niners helped you because I don't know if you know this, but the Seahawks had 3 possessions that started inside the Niner 30, which means you started in field goal position. The downside is you guys only came away with 7 points. But as bad as it might seem for Niners fans, I want to tell them with all those turnovers, it could have been worse.
I mean, I don't know what to tell you. I think the whole time this game was very brutal to watch too. I mean, it's as bad as it gets for the Seahawks. You got turnovers, penalties, 0 second half point spells at the end. And, if it wasn't for the Niners' mistakes, definitely they could have taken it. They honestly could have taken it.
Now, having said all that, I will point this out. Even though he still missed a couple throws, Russell Wilson looked like Russell Wilson again, at least on the stat sheet, which I don't find it coincidental that the first game after December 3rd is his best game because that was the initial time he was supposed to come back. Lo and behold, his timetable to come back, all of a sudden he's healthy. Now he throws 30 for 37. But my biggest takeaway from this game is, again, as you guys know, Katie and I live in the Bay Area. I am absolutely loving San Francisco sports radio right now because, like I said, last week they were going to the Super Bowl. This week it's like, who's to blame? Should we fire Shanahan? Like, it has taken a deep – and, like, they're still in the playoffs and they're acting like the season is over. I think they're more ticked off, not so much that they lost the game, but they had built this up as this is the Niners' chance to end the Russell Wilson, Pete Carroll era.
Yeah.
And they build it as that. So when they lost, they think, oh my God, they did it to us again. And I'm just cracking up because they're like, do you think this team is a good team? It's like, you guys had them winning the Super Bowl last week. So they're so flip-floppy out here. But I got what I wanted. I'd rather have ticked off Niner fan than obnoxious Niner fan. So I got what I wanted, so I'm happy.
The best part about it was just being with my fiance's family. And the first thing they say is, really? Russell Wilson just decides to play out of nowhere? Are you serious? This whole entire time he did horrible, but now he wants to play? Nothing like a Niners fan losing. Nothing like it. Okay,
so the game I want to talk about, I believe it was billed as being the only game between two teams that were currently in the playoffs, and that's between the LA Chargers and the Cincinnati Bengals. So the Chargers end up winning this game 41-22, which sounds like a pretty significant total, but the headline is like the Chargers held off the Bengals. And the reason they say that is because the Chargers jumped out to a 24-0 lead by the early second quarter. And by the mid-third quarter, the Bengals had scored 22 unanswered, so it was a 2-point game. Now, after that point, the Chargers ended up scoring 17 more points with a fumble return and a touchdown. So it was almost like an NBA game because it was like a game of streaks. 24-0, then 24-22, and then it ends up being 41-22. And it was, from what I could tell, a pretty good performance by both teams. It wasn't it wasn't the game Monday night between the Patriots and the Bills. That was just weather, boring football. This game was actually kind of exciting. So Herbert, my man Herbert, again goes for over 300 yards for the 15th time in his 27 games of his career. Burrow, despite a dislocated pinky, it still threw for over 300 yards. It was just a very good game, and I'm just falling more and more in love with Justin Herbert. I've got an official man crush on Justin Herbert. But the only problem is I'm so old it might be very inappropriate at this age because he's got the second highest yards per game of any quarterback in the career, second only to Patrick Mahomes. Granted, the sample size is smaller than Patrick Mahomes, but this is what Patrick Mahomes was doing at the beginning of his career. So I'm wondering, are we beginning to see Justin Herbert become the next Patrick Mahomes? And by the way, he's doing this with less weapons because let's be honest, Mahomes' his first 3 seasons has had nothing but weapons. Herbert's had maybe 2 or 3 consistent weapons. So I just use that whole segment to promote Justin Herbert. fan club. So there you go. But did you get to see any of this game?
To be honest, I didn't really get to see the Chargers versus the Bengals game. However, I did see it a lot on my Snapchat feeds. And from the looks of it and from the hear about it and from the news about it, I heard this was one of the greatest games they played. So I agree with everything you said. And to be honest, I the more and more I hear about Chargers, the more I hear about them winning. I hear about them taking these possessions, these throws and everything. So I'm with you on it. I mean, I didn't see it, but I would like to see a recap of it.
Yeah, and the best thing about the two games we talked about, the losers of both those games, the Niners and the Bengals, they play each other this week.
Oh, it's a beautiful time.
We'll get to more of that later, but yeah, they play each other this week, so it's going to be very interesting.
Yeah.
Speaking of that, seeing how I brought it up, let's just jump into our predictions then. First game on the schedule is the 6-6 49ers going to Cincinnati to play the 7-5 Bengals. Casey, who you got?
To be honest, I'll give this one to the Niners. I think the Niners are going to take the Bengals. I think they're just going to be so upset of what just happened. So give it to the Niners.
Yeah. I mean, I want to give it to the Bengals, but Burrow's finger has me concerned because it's not as bad as Russell Wilson, but it is on the throwing hand. And the Niners are getting the benefit of the late window start because usually West Coast teams go into Eastern time zone for what to them is a 10 a.m. kickoff is usually not good. But they're getting the benefit of that late window, even though they're on East Coast time. So I think it'll be just fine. Yeah, I don't want to say it, but I'm going to take the Niners too.
All right.
Okay, next game on the list. The 6-6 Raiders are going into Arrowhead to face the streaking Kansas City Chiefs. Casey, who you got?
I got the Chiefs. Just because.
Whoa. You mean to tell me that there's a Raiders game and you're not taking the Raiders?
No. I'm just kidding. We all know. I'm taking the Raiders on this one. I think the Raiders are going to outbeat the Chiefs. I mean, the Chiefs are 7-4. Las Vegas Raiders are 6-6. I mean, it's going to be a close game. I'll put it that way. So, Vegas Raiders.
I don't think so. Yeah, because
you're going for Chiefs.
Yeah, I am, because what has happened with the Chiefs the last couple of weeks is what I was saying the first 6-week season was their problem. I said they weren't going anywhere until their defense got better. Well, their defense has gotten better. So, and that's why they're on like a 5-game winning streak, I think. So their defense has gotten to the point now where people are starting to question if the offense is the problem. Like, is the offense holding the defense back? Which at the beginning of the season sounded ludicrous, but I said if their defense got better, I'd get back on their bandwagon. And the last couple of weeks that they've gotten better, so I'm back all aboard. Here we go, Kansas City Chiefs.
Okay, fair game.
All right, next game, because it's your team. The 4-8 Seahawks are going into Houston to face the 2-10 Houston Texans, which, by the way, is the first team officially eliminated from playoff contention.
I swear to God that if the Seahawks do not take Houston, I really don't know what to say after that. But of course, I'm going to go for my beloved Seahawks. But Houston has been eliminated. It's a 2-10 streak. I mean, come on. The Seahawks. I'm just going to say that. Seahawks are going to take this. I think it's going to be a far-by win. It's going to be one of those game sides. They're going to be almost untouchable. So
I think I'm going to take the Texans. No, I'm kidding. See, it ain't fun. It ain't funny when I do it. No. Give me the Seahawks. If Wilson's finger is better, which that's the best he's looked in since returning. I don't see Houston doing anything. They're probably best case scenario deflated from being eliminated. But yeah, I'm surprised Houston has 2 wins, to be honest with you. So give me the Seahawks.
All right.
Okay, so we are kind of agreeing more than I would like, so I'm hoping this one will change the tide, but I doubt it. The next game is the 7-5 Bills are going down to Florida to play the 9-3 Buccaneers. KC, who you got?
Buccaneers.
Damn it.
Yes, the Buccaneers.
Yeah, so remember earlier in the year when I was kind of like questioning Kansas City and I said I was officially off their bandwagon until they figured their lives out? That's now where I'm at with the Bills. Granted, the Monday night game, the wind was terrible. I totally understand that. Like, Bill Belichick threw the ball 3 times. I mean, like I said earlier, he did a quarterback sneak on a 3rd and 5. I mean, they refused to throw the ball, and Buffalo still couldn't stop them, and Buffalo still lost. I couldn't get past it. I was like, even I know what they're doing. They're running the same, like, I don't know if you saw the Manning cast, but even the Mannings are like, they're running the same 4 plays over and over again, make an adjustment, and there was just nothing. That kind of turned me off to Buffalo, so until further notice, I'm off their bandwagon. Go ahead, give me Tom Brady and the Bucs, which, by the way, I think if they win this game, I think the Bucs officially clinched the division, ? Don't quote me on that, but I think that's the case. So they're going to be motivated on top of all that. And our last game of the week, the Monday Nighter. The LA Rams at 8-4 are going to face the 10-2 league best Arizona Cardinals. KC, who you got?
LA Rams. All the way. LA.
So I knew you were going to say that.
LA.
So I'm going to hit you with some stats as to why you're wrong, because that's what I love to do.
Oh, here we go.
So the Rams, yes, they are 8-4. I will grant them that. But I always hear about how the Cardinals, quote unquote, haven't beaten anybody. Well, you know who really hasn't beaten anybody? The LA Rams. They are 2-4 against teams that are 500 or better. So that means, and 6 of their 8 wins have come against the Bears, the Seahawks, which, you said it yourself, it's not their year, the Giants, the Lions, the Texans, and the Jags. That's not exactly running through a gauntlet. In fact, every time they played a team that was decent, they've pretty much lost.
Which is not entirely wrong.
On the flip side, the Cardinals, against teams that are, their record against teams that are over 500, they're 5-1. So we're beating the big boys. I get we lost to Green Bay, but Green Bay is a good team. But we're beating the good teams. In fact, the division schedules are usually pretty much the same because you play a division opponent and then you play 4 games against another opponent from the AFC. So we're playing everybody they're playing with the exception of a handful of games, and yet they're 2-4 against winning teams, and we're 5-1. To quote J.J. Watt, maybe we're just better. So give me the Cardinals.
I really can't wait to see. I'm actually going to watch this Monday game. So I can't wait to see LA Rams take the Cardinals. I mean, answer me this question. Where are we playing?
It's in Arizona.
God damn it. We're still going to win.
Oh, you don't remember earlier in the season, Arizona went into LA and spanked the Rams? Did you forget that?
No, I did not forget that, but I believe the LA Rams will come back with the hit and spank the Cardinals. So we'll leave it as that, Brady. And we'll come back next week and talk about this game because definitely the LA Rams are going to be on our topic.
So unlike you, I'm going to watch my team on Monday night. So I'm right there with you. But I'm going to test your confidence level. You willing to bet a lunch?
Bet on it.
You heard it here, folks. I'm getting a free lunch, and a fat boy loves free food. So here we go.
All right.
Oh, and by the way, if the Cardinals win, we clinch a playoff spot. Which, you want to know how messed up the AFC is right now? The Cardinals, the Packers, and the Bucs all can win this weekend and clinch a playoff, either by just playoff position or clinch a division. You know how many teams can clinch the playoffs this week in the AFC? 0. Nobody can clinch. That's how much of a jumbled mess the AFC is. I mean, the Dolphins are on a 5-game win streak, and they're still 13th in the conference. And for folks that don't know, there's only 16 teams in the AFC. So
yeah.
Okay, let's move on to our next topic.
Can we talk about something else?
Okay, our next topic. It's the biggest topic in college football. It has finally happened. The decision has been made. And of course, I am talking about Arizona State versus Wisconsin in the Las Vegas Bowl on December 30th. That's not what we're talking about?
No.
Oh. There was bigger news than that?
Yes. There's always going to be bigger news than that.
Yeah, this little thing called the College Football Playoff. I guess they finally announced their teams. Yeah, okay. So, committee has finally put out who their teams are. Number 1 is Alabama after they bludgeoned Georgia in typical Georgia fashion. And number two is Michigan, who there was a lot of talk of maybe they should be number 1. Number 3 is Georgia, because up until they got beat by Alabama, they were undefeated. And Katie, who's this 4th team that got in?
The one and only Cincinnati.
That's right. The team that Katie was on like week 2, and I laughed at her, said there's no way the committee lets them in. Now,
and guess what?
Well, I did say the only way they get in is if they run the table and everybody else loses. I did have that caveat in there because I said they're going to look for a reason to kick them out. And Cincinnati needs to send a thank you card to Baylor's Jaron McVay. Do you know who that is?
I do.
Yeah, he's the linebacker that chased the Oklahoma State running back inches out of bounds, because if Oklahoma State wins that game, I wouldn't be surprised if they're in instead of Cincinnati. So Cincinnati Bearcats, find Jaron McVay's mailing address and send him gift cards, flower baskets, whatever football players give each other, because you guys owe him a huge thank you. Because I'm convinced if he scores that touchdown, y'all don't get in.
I honestly, I'm done with the committee of college football.
Oh, I have no problem with the rankings. I just think that they had no choice but to get this one right.
Yeah, they had to. I mean, compared to the last rankings they gave out, I was in complete shock on how they ranked it. But at least this one makes a little bit more sense than the other one. Yeah,
and to be honest with you, if it wasn't for the fact that Cincinnati beat Notre Dame, I think they would have put Notre Dame in.
Yeah.
Because they love Notre Dame for whatever. I mean, it's probably because of dollar signs, but they love themselves some Notre Dame football.
Yeah.
So both of the playoff games, the semifinals, are going to take place New Year's Eve. Alabama is going to play Cincinnati in the Cotton Bowl in Arlington, Texas. Michigan is going to play Georgia in Orange Bowl in Miami, Florida. So, KC, I didn't give you a heads up on this, but we're going to go ahead and do it. Who you got winning those games?
I think Georgia will take it. I hate Alabama, so I'm going for Cincinnati.
Cool. We're complete opposite.
Yes, and because I will stick to Cincinnati all the way through.
Oh, don't get me wrong. I'm thrilled to death that Cincinnati is in there. And I've heard a lot of people say Cincinnati's going to get in the playoff just to get blown out by 50 points. And my argument was, I'm not saying you're wrong, but they've earned the right to get blown out by 50 points. So I do believe Alabama is going to, I'm not going to say 50 points, but I do think Alabama is going to handily win that game. But I will say this, if Cincinnati competes with Alabama, all this talk of Power 5 conference teams or non-Power 5 conference teams not getting in goes out the window. Because if Cincinnati hangs with Alabama, that's proof that you need to stop judging teams based off because they're the lower tier.
Exactly. So especially I would love to see Cincinnati whoop Alabama's ass in the sense of, yep, we should have seen this coming, especially because the rankings were not fair the first time.
Oh, I'm convinced if they're within 2 touchdowns, they had a good showing because Alabama just spanked Georgia by more than that, and Georgia was the best team in the nation for the whole damn year. So no pressure, Cincinnati, but I'm not saying you got to win, but don't lose by too much. And the other game, honestly, I think Michigan might be better now. They had some strong showing. There was a lot of talk about them possibly being the top team, but I didn't ever think they were going to get the number 1 spot just because the committee, there was no way in hell they were going to have the first semifinal game be a rematch between Alabama and Georgia. They're going to save that for the title game if both teams make it. And to be fair, Georgia, I would love to know what their mindset is right now because it was once again, we got Alabama right here in front of us. We control our own destiny, and we let Alabama take it from us yet again. So maybe they're motivated to beat Michigan so they could try another crack at Alabama, but they might be completely deflated thinking, here we go again.
I could see that.
Also, in some college football news, remember when I said that Mario Cristobal was not going to leave Oregon for USC because he wanted to drive up price of his contract? Remember that?
I remember.
Apparently I was half right. So he did drive up the cost for Oregon, who offered him an extension, but apparently he didn't sign it, and within a blink of an eye, now he's Miami's new head coach. So, yes, that came out, I think, yesterday. Miami went ahead and fired their head coach, and literally within hours, Mario Cristobal is the new Miami Hurricanes head coach.
Just a freaking luck.
Which, by the way, if you're Coach Diaz from Miami, like you've got to be irate, right? Because there's no way you can have me convinced that you weren't already talking with this guy before you fired me. Because Katie, I'm telling you, I saw the timestamp on the news article. It was about 8-something in the morning where this says they fired Diaz. Less than an hour later, here's the article where they hired Cristobal.
I'm telling you.
And then to wrap up, you know what? I messed up. We did not pick a winner. So who you got winning the championship? If you got Georgia and Cincinnati, who you got winning it? And I know you're going to say Cincinnati, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, okay.
Exactly.
Yeah, because if they beat Alabama, why couldn't they beat Georgia? It makes perfect sense.
Exactly.
For me, Alabama versus Michigan would be my final. And I guess I'll say Michigan just because I'm tired of seeing Alabama. But I honestly don't think anybody's beating Alabama anymore. Because somehow Nick Saban has convinced his players that Alabama is disrespected. I don't know how he pulled that off, but they're convinced that they've been disrespected, so they're just pissed.
Cry me a frickin' river.
Yep, 7 championships, not enough. Here comes 8.
Right.
So, but speaking of Alabama, their quarterback Bryce Young is also one of the Heisman finalists. So there's Bryce Young, Michigan's defensive end Aiden Hutchinson, Pittsburgh quarterback Kenny Pickett, and Ohio State quarterback C.J. Stroud. Do you even have an opinion of who you think's winning this, Katie?
No, not actually. I don't.
Because I don't. That's why I'm asking if you do.
No.
So just based off the list, I'm just going to go for Hutchinson because it's not a quarterback. But I'm pretty sure we all know it's probably going to be Bryce Young.
You really think it's going to be Bryce Young?
Did you watch that Georgia game?
No.
No, yeah, he educated what was supposed to be the best defense in the country. He probably won his Heisman last weekend.
Oh.
He was probably already a finalist, but I think that was the nail in the coffin. Short of Hutchinson, unless he went out there and had like a 5-sack game against Iowa, I don't see any way Bryce Young was losing this.
Definitely going to have to watch that replay of Bryce Young so I can see what you're talking about.
Oh, yeah, he lit him up. Actually, if you give me 2 seconds, I'll pull up his stats. Yeah, so here you go, Casey. Here's his stats. 26 for 44, which doesn't sound all that impressive until I throw at you 421 yards and 3 touchdowns. I'd say against a team that was supposed to be the best defense in the nation, I'd say he wrapped up that Heisman.
Yeah, I could see your point on this one now.
Okay, so hopefully that's the last college football we talk for the rest of the calendar year. I'll talk about it whenever they finally determine a champion, because other than that, I don't care unless Casey yells at me because she wants to talk about it more. But with that, let's go ahead and move on to our next topic. Okay, our next topic is the MLB Lockout. So, for those that don't know, because I actually had many people ask me this question, surprisingly more than I thought I would, they're asking me, like, well, what is a lockout? Like, what's the point of the lockout? And the only way I could explain it was, you know how when the players are unhappy with their work conditions and they go on strike? Well, this is the owner's version of a strike. Is that they lock out all their employees and say you can't come to the facility. That's basically it. So the biggest deal is you can't do any roster transactions, so no more trades. You can't sign any free agents. Minor league players can't get their physicals done. Things like that. To be honest with you, this is probably not a story until springtime when some games may or may not come into play. The biggest issues from what I'm talking about is player pay. Not so much like the big salary guys, but those second-tier guys that are not getting decent contracts because they're just going and getting younger players to fill their spot. I think I've also heard that the big issue is how quickly a player could reach free agency, because right now it's, I want to say, like 6 years time big league service before you're a free agent.
Wow.
And teams can definitely manipulate that to where they bring you up for a couple weeks at the end of the year, but that doesn't count towards your time. It's really complicated, but I know that one's on there. And there's also like the competitive balance that's an issue. I mean, because baseball has never had a salary cap, and it's been the story for 100 years that the big market teams always seem to get the best players because they just simply have more money to spend. And the perfect example is a deal that happened just before the lockout took place with Max Scherzer. He just signed with the Mets for 3 years, God knows how many millions of dollars. But the big takeaway is his first year salary is $43.3 million.
How much?
43.3.
God damn.
Katie, that's higher than 2 teams' entire payrolls. The Pirates are at 40.2 and the Orioles are at 37. And credit to Jeff Passan because he's the one that put this out. He said the top 5 salaries, anticipated salaries for opening day. They had it from 1 to 5, and Max Scherzer was right there at number 3. So
wow.
He's making more money than 2 whole teams, and I think that's where a lot of the big league players are like that. Something has to be done. Owners are penny pinching to like where players are just not getting paid. They're basically throwing seasons because
right.
And as a fan, I kind of agree with that because if my team was terrible for 30 years, I kind of be pissed off too. And
right.
And my D-backs, they're trying because they haven't been good in quite a few years now. They're trying a nice little streak of their own. So here's the reason I think this could become an issue, though, Katie. Do you remember the 94 strike?
The what?
The 1994 baseball strike.
Yeah, Brady, I wasn't born.
Exactly. So in 1994, they were playing their season as usual. I forget which exact month it happened. I can't remember if it was July or August. The short version of a long story is the players went on strike to the point where there was no World Series played that year. So if you want to surprise your friends with a trivia question, you just ask them who won the 1994 World Series. The answer is nobody. So now there are plenty of folks after that said they were done with baseball. And many folks came back from the 1998 home run race between McGwire and Sosa. That did bring a lot of people back, but not everybody. There's some people to this day that said they were done with baseball after '94 because it was a crock. To be like wow. It should not have happened in the middle of the season. It was their first mistake.
Right.
So if that happens now with all the other options that are available to folks, because baseball's already kind of skidding in popularity. It's already deemed to be an archaic game as is. If you go into the spring with this still lingering, where regular season games are going to start being affected, people are going to see this as that millionaires versus billionaires argument. They're going to throw up their hands. There's going to be a lot of people saying, I'm done with baseball.
You really think so?
Oh, yeah. There's still people, like I said, there's still plenty of people that never came back after 94. And there's a vast majority of people that only came back after the 98 home run race, which is why I think baseball turned a blind eye to steroids in the late 90s because they knew that was the only way to get their fans back.
You know, I could see that. I could see that. We're talking about a year that I wasn't even born, so you lived it, and you're telling me about it. So,
well, yeah. And the funny part is, like, was I think probably their longest stretch without a stoppage of labor.
Mm-hmm.
But I want to say in the 70s and 80s, it was almost habitual how often they would be either lockouts or strikes. And 94 was just the latest one, but it was so bad that both sides agreed, we can't do this again. But the only problem with that is time. You know how many people are still around from 1994? Probably not that many.
Right.
I mean, you probably got some baseball writers and some broadcasters that remember 94 like it was yesterday. But a lot of people running baseball probably weren't running baseball in 94. So they don't realize how devastating that was for the sport.
Right.
There's also another little caveat, Katie, and I want to get your opinion on this.
Okay.
Remember, like, Deflategate with Tom Brady and how they had the air pressure and the footballs and all that good stuff, right?
Correct.
What if I had told you that, listen to me, sounded like an ESPN 30 for 30. What if I told you that the NFL was using 2 different types of footballs? It would sound pretty crazy. Exactly. Yeah. It would sound pretty crazy, right?
Yeah.
Well, guess what happened last year in baseball? Baseball was using 2 different types of balls. Their excuse was we had to tap into our collection of 2020 baseballs because of the pandemic and manufacturing. Because in 2021, they went to a lighter, less bouncy ball because I never thought I'd say this out loud, to reduce the number of home runs. So they like, hey, we're going to change the baseballs. We're going to make it like lighter, less bouncy, doesn't travel as far. And they blame the manufacturing on it. However, research has shown that from hundreds of samples of baseballs over 15 different stadiums, about half of them were the old ball. And some of the numbers, the manufacturing batch numbers, was dated after baseball had announced they were changing the ball. Okay. So my personal opinion, I think they wanted to do their own little research of, does the ball really matter, and decide not to tell anybody.
It does matter.
Yeah, I know it matters, but I wanted to see, but I'm willing to bet that they wanted to see if we change this ball, like, because they're probably using that data to analyze something, and because that would sound like a legit thing to me. Like, hey, we wanted to get this data. We didn't want the players knowing for obvious reasons, so we just didn't tell anybody. Now, apparently they told the Players Association, but if you ask all the players, none of them were like, I had no clue. But even that argument doesn't hold water to me, mainly because of how the sport of baseball is viewed. Like, what is baseball completely based off of to determine whether a player is good or not? The stats.
The stats?
Yes, baseball is a game of statistics. Think about it. Home run races, strikeouts, pitcher wins. All these things determine whether you get called up to the big leagues, whether you get that second contract, whether you get that max contract, whether you're considered an all-star. Hell, even if you get into the Hall of Fame, the entire sport is based off of stats. And you're going to tell me that one of these years you threw out two different types of baseballs and expected it not to affect people's stats?
Yeah, we got an issue.
Right, because imagine, because I don't know how much incentive contracts are in baseball. Like, like in football, you do a certain number of plays, you get a little extra money. That kind of deal. Right. Like, baseball, I don't know how many contracts have this, but let's say hypothetically a player has in his contract, if you get 20 home runs, you get an extra $1 million or something like that. How pissed off would you be to find out that you had to play with the lighter ball while other players were playing with the heavier ball that produced more home runs?
I would probably I'll be hating a little bit, because then people could use that against me. And especially my team. Like, oh, you played with the lighter ball. That'll make, whatever.
Or I'll take it even a step further. Instead of just a bonus, let's say you're the minor league pitcher that gets called up for the game. Your first big league appearance. First pitch, batter hits one out of the ballpark, but it barely goes out. It costs the team the game. You're probably going back down to the minors after that. But if you had the lighter, less bouncy ball, that ball might just be a long fly ball. You might still lead the ball club. Now you've changed careers.
Right.
So,
I see. Yeah, I see that point.
Right. And I just can't fathom this, because did they not see what happened with the NFL and Deflategate? I started with the NFL for that reason. Like, did they learn nothing from that? Tom Brady took the suspension, but there are many quarterbacks that came out and admitted they were doing the exact same thing. Tom Brady was just the poster boy for that. But Did you see all the backlash that came from that? And baseball, did you learn nothing?
Yeah.
So, I'm not thrilled about that. Like, it's just baseball getting in their own way yet again. So I talked for a long time on that, Katie, because I know baseball means a lot more to me than it probably does to you, because I cheer for teams besides the LA Dodgers. But do you have any thoughts on this?
You kind of hit the bases on this, and it's just like you said.
Hit the bases, good one.
And it's just like you said, baseball was introduced to me by my father, and of course the Dodgers. But you kind of hit some key points that I actually didn't even know about or was aware about. For God's sakes, you talked about 1994. I wasn't even born, Brandy. So it was pretty. It's pretty new information for me, especially going. You telling me a lot more about it, but damn. Yeah.
So another year, another lesson not learned by baseball of how to stay out of their own way. Hopefully they'll get something figured out so no baseball games are lost, because I will say this, if they don't have something done by March 1st, then it's going to get serious. Yeah. Because you still got to have time for spring training, and the season, I want to say, is scheduled to start the end of March. So if you don't have something by March 1st, pulses are going to start going up.
Yeah.
Okay, we're going to have our next topic. We're going to lighten it up a little bit, and we're going to get on our lawn and tell people to get off our lawn with the next topic. So here we go. The next topic. Every fan has their sport or their rule that they end up screaming at the television. That's a stupid rule. They should change that. And what kind of got me thinking about this topic, Katie, was I saw a story where the NBA's three-point percentage is significantly lower this year. And a lot of people are chalking it up to the rule change where you can't jump into the defender like on a non-basketball move and draw a foul. Also, knowing the rules, I think defensive players are more aggressive with shooters now. So a lot more contested shots. But that got me to thinking. The NBA finally took that rule into effect where you couldn't jump into a defender on a non-basketball move. With that in mind, Katie, I want us to each come up with 3 sports rules that if we were the sports god for the day, that we would change. I'll let you go first, but what is your first, if you were the sports czar, what rule would you change right now?
And to be completely with you, if I could change something that completely gets me off, because it's one of those calls that sometimes they make it correct, sometimes they don't, sometimes it's it's offsides in soccer. There's nothing that pisses me off watching women's team soccer players, or I could say even men's during like the World Cup series or, La Copa. But it's definitely annoying when they call the whistle, the player's already like halfway through the line of the defense and they're about to make the shot, and then the whistle gets blown last minute. And it's because they say, hey, that was offsides. And you're kind of looking at the passing at the pass video, and you're just kind of like, it's not. You could honestly continue that play, and it would have still been okay. So offsides in soccer completely, I would say take it out. If you could get past the defense line and get ahead of them, that's their fault. I mean, it's just definitely always someone has to hang back, but definitely that would be one rule I would take out.
Oh, I'm right there with you. Because, again, I'm not the world's biggest soccer fan, but come World Cup time, I become the world's biggest soccer fan that's not normally a soccer fan. And when they kick that ball over the defense's head, nobody between him and the goalie, and then you hear those 3 magic words, flag is up.
Yeah.
And it just breaks your heart. And I've always hated offsides in soccer because, wait a minute, you can't try to score a goal because our defense wasn't ready.
Exactly.
That has never made sense to me. And for that matter, hockey too, because in hockey nobody can cross the blue line until after the puck does. That's I've never understood that either. Why can't we just be like the NBA? If you want to stay on the end and cherry pick, so be it. Defense, figure out how to stop them.
I definitely agree on that. The second thing I would take out is probably holding during boxing. I see this so many times and I kind of get annoyed of it because I hear it all the time when they hold each other and the refs have to come up to them, and whoever started it, they give them off a warning and keep going. I mean, I feel like that's just a waste of time in boxing. They just keep on holding to each other. I feel like sometimes that's their little break moment of fighting, but it's kind of like, come on, you're not supposed to hold. Just keep the fight interesting. Keep going. Don't stop the holding. A lot of times during the hold, you have these people who give elbow shrubs or a little punch to the kidney or a little kick to the stomach, and it just goes unknown because they're holding each other so close, but you can see it from your angle of the camera, but the referee who's trying to break them apart, it's just not, he doesn't see it. So if there's one rule, is if you start holding, that's a point off of your score chart. So that's another one.
Yeah, because to me, when those guys get together and just hug it out for a little bit, to me, that's the equivalent of other sports where a player, quote, takes the play off. The only problem is with boxing, if you take a play off, everybody can tell because there's only 2 of you. So, yeah, I'm right there with you on that one.
Yeah.
What's your third one?
My third one, All right, ladies and gentlemen, I'm probably going to butcher this, and I'm actually going to need Brady's assistance on this. It's when a football team fumbles at the touchdown line and goes out of bounds, and it gets turned over. Did I say it correct?
Yeah. I mean, I think you pretty much got it. For those that don't know what she's talking about, I think she's talking about like a player's running towards the end zone just before they get their defensive cause as a fumble, and it goes through the end zone and goes out of bounds. Now it's the other team's ball, and it's a touchback. Is that what you're talking about?
Yes, that is exactly what I'm talking about. I mean, just give the ball back. Let's keep continuing to play. I mean, nobody got it. Just continue on.
Yeah, I mean, I would love to see, hey, ball goes through the end zone. Okay, return the ball to the spot where it's fumbled. You know, kind of like what they do when it goes out of bounds on the sideline. For some reason, that mystical line of the end zone, now all of a sudden the defense gets the ball. And don't get me wrong, I could say, hey, it's nice for the defense to cause the fumble, but I've literally seen plays where an offensive player has beat the defender, is reaching to just get the ball across the plane, and loses his grip on the ball, and it goes out the sideline. Defense gets the ball. Defense didn't cause that. I'm with you. Never understood that one.
So that's like one of the other ones. Brady, what are yours? I already got a feeling you got a couple in your mind. So please.
You know, I could probably talk about this for days, but I'm going to try to limit it to 3 here. My first one, the Euro step, is traveling. I'm sorry. I know it probably makes for exciting basketball plays, but the original 2 steps in basketball was meant for momentum, as in, like, I'm going up for a layup. It's physically impossible for me to catch the ball off the dribble and get the ball up and out of my hands without taking 2 steps. So that's what its intent was. Somehow, and I want to blame Manu Ginobili, but I don't know if he was the first one or not, but he's the one that made it famous. Somehow they turned that 2-step rule into, I could take 1 step, completely change my direction to take another step, and then take a shot. I'm sorry. I get 2 steps for momentum, but when you intentionally change your momentum, to me, you're traveling. So I would get rid of that 5 seconds ago.
Right. I definitely agree with you on that one.
The next one I got is the passed ball on a strikeout. And for those that don't know, when there's a 3rd strike in a game and the catcher doesn't cleanly catch the ball, technically the base runner can freely run to first base. That's why a lot of times you see them have to throw the ball to first. Or what you see all the time is a low strike 3 is in the dirt, batter swings, the catcher catches the ball and stands up and tags the batter real quick. That's the reason he tags him, is because if he doesn't tag him, that base runner can technically run to first base. I'm sorry, that just never made sense to me either. Like, how can you strike out and not be out? Like, I'm pretty sure, take me out to the ball game, the line is 1, 2, 3 strikes, you're out. Where does it say 1, 2, 3 strikes, run to first base? That's not in the song. So I would get rid now. If there's a runner on base, then they can advance. No problem. Like, I'm all for that. But hey, I struck out, but I can still run to first base. That's never made sense to me.
Yeah, I could definitely agree on that one.
And then for my last one, I'm torn of which, because I have a couple here, and I'm torn of which one I want to do. But I guess I'll go with the college possession arrow. And what that is, for those that don't know, in the NBA, if you get 2 players tied up where they both have a hold on the ball at the same time, they call a jump ball. And they literally have the 2 players meet at the free throw line, and it's just like they jump ball at the beginning of the game to see who actually gets the ball between those 2 players. That's not how they settle it in college. In college, where 2 players tie up the ball, they have this thing called the possession arrow. And let's say Team Katie and Team Shawn are playing. If I'm on defense and I tie up the offensive player on your team, but you have the possession arrow, you get the ball, no matter what. There's no jump ball. It just automatically goes to you, and the possession arrow will now turn to the next time it happens, my team would get the ball. That is stupid. Like, yeah, these kids are jumping 10 plus feet in the air, some of them even higher than NBA players, but we can't ask them to jump for a ball to see who actually gets it. I've never understood that one.
Yeah, that one's kind of dumb. Might as well just keep it real, keep it like NBA, jump for it, work for it. It's not just automatically, oh, their ball. Oh, switch time. Their ball now. I think that is the most dumbest rule they have.
So, like, yeah,
Right.
it's not rewarding good defensive play. But the one caveat that I left out, and I left it out because I think baseball may be trying to do this anyway, was the two different rules in baseball. And what I mean by that is, why do the American League and National League play by two different sets of rules? Either have the pitchers hit or have somebody hit for them. I've never understood how you could be in the same league and play by two different rules.
Correct.
I mean, to me, that's like in the NBA, Western Conference, you could play with a 3-point line, but Eastern Conference, you can't. Like, what? You fundamentally changed the game. Like, it just doesn't make sense to me. But I think they're actually trying to change that one. I kind of hope they do. But that was my 3B, if you will.
There's so much in sports that we could talk about, especially like when we go into more depths. And like, of course, we didn't even talk about pay issues and like, different things.
We limited this to like in-game rules because we can gripe about like how playoff seedings are done or salary cap, and we could have talked about for 3 days on stuff like that.
So, I mean, we pretty much nailed the nice topping of it. If we were to get more into depth, I think we would be stuck on this podcast for hours. So.
And so instead of bearing our audience's ears, the next time I see you, I'll just run down with you all of my complaints, and then you're the only one that has to suffer. And you can't say no because you made me watch that Seahawks game when you didn't even watch it, so you owe me.
Yeah, that is very true.
Okay, folks, that's our episode for today. I hope you enjoyed it. Katie, if they want more of you, where can they find you?
You guys can always find me on Twitter at Katie1787. Or, Shawn, where can they find you?
They can always find me on Twitter at Shawn_Brady82. Or if they want to tweet the show, they can tweet us at ExcuseMyFrenemy.
Perfecto. And please, guys, give us a shout out, give us a like, or even just post something so that way we can have something to talk about later on. Hey, Brady, it was nice being here again. And let's do this again next week.
Will do. Also, speaking of next week, we don't usually plug future shows, but next week is going to be our last show for the year because Katie and Lives, despite contrary belief, we have lives and we want to spend the holidays with our families. But next week, we're going to, if we could get to work, we're going to try to do our bloopers from our previous shows. So if you enjoy me and Katie making arses of ourselves, you'll enjoy next week's episode.
So stay tuned, guys, and please enjoy the holidays. Let us know what your favorite Christmas dinners are, or what you're looking forward for Christmas gifts, or what you guys actually plan to gift other people, because I could actually use that.
Are you really soliciting gift ideas from the audience?
Yes, I am. I need help.
Okay, Casey. Had all year to think about it, but we're going to rely on the audience. But okay. All right, I'll talk to you next week, Casey.
Later, man.